If you feel like you're just drowning in the sea of news and fake news and just endless arguments about what's even real anymore, you're definitely not alone. It really feels like we've lost our way, right? But what if I told you this whole problem, it's not new at all? What if that golden age of trustworthy news that we're all kind of nostalgic for, what if it never even existed? Okay, let's get into it because the real history of news is, well, it's way more surprising than you might think.
So let's start our journey with this absolute bombshell of a quote. It's from Walter Lippmann, one of the most respected journalists of the 20th century. He said, "News and truth are not the same thing and must be clearly distinguished." Whoa! I mean, just let that sink in. News and truth are not the same. That idea, it just cuts right against everything we're taught to believe about journalism, doesn't it? It's the key, you guys. It's the key that unlocks this whole conversation.
And look, we all want to believe in this ideal, right? We crave it. A source of information that's just totally objective, fair, neutral, impartial, just giving us the cold, hard facts so we can make up our own minds. It's supposed to be the gold standard. It's what we're told to look for, and honestly, it feels like the very thing that's completely missing today.
Okay, and here's the big pivot. This is the central question we're tackling today. What if that whole idea of a perfectly objective news media, what if it's just a myth? What if the DNA of news itself has always been tangled up with something else entirely? To figure this out, we've got to go back, like way, way back.
All right, so to really get to the bottom of this, we're jumping in the time machine. Because if we want to understand all the confusion we're feeling right now, we have to look at how news even got started. And what you find isn't some noble history of sober, factual reporting. Oh no, it's a history of pure sensationalism.
And just look how early this all starts. I mean, we're talking long before there were even regular newspapers. In 1463, you've got a popular news song spreading these wild tales about the cruelty of Vlad the Impaler. Yep, the real-life Dracula. They literally turned a political figure into a horror story. Then, in the 1500s, these early news sheets were just obsessed with the bizarre. Even something that actually happened, like a flood in Wales in 1607, gets this crazy title, A Strange and Wonderful Flood. So from the very beginning, the goal wasn't just to inform people, it was to shock them, to entertain them. This chart just illustrates the point perfectly. Someone actually analyzed these early French news sheets, and look what they found. Were they covering politics, the economy? Nope. 36% was just marvels, weird, bizarre stuff. Then you've got calamities, crime, celestial apparitions. That's basically the whole pie. So the big takeaway here is that the original business model for news wasn't built on facts. It was built on sensationalism.
Okay, so print news has always been a little messy. But what about pictures? I mean, a photograph, a piece of film, that can't lie, can it? Well, let's take a closer look at that.
You've probably heard this saying, right? The camera cannot lie. And it became popular for a reason. When photography first showed up, it must have felt like actual magic, like a perfect scientific mirror of the real world. People saw it as the ultimate tool for objectivity, a machine that just captures pure evidence, totally free from any human bias. But is that really what's going on?
Check out this powerful example. If you look at the raw footage from the beaches of Dunkirk in 1940, what you see is a military disaster. It's a desperate retreat. But then, if you watch the newsreels that people saw at the time, the whole story changes. You've got this narrator with a booming voice, soaring music, heroic language, and suddenly they've reframed everything. The epic of Dunkirk turns a massive defeat into this incredible story of resilience and national spirit. The images themselves might be real, but the story they tell, that's completely constructed by the words and the music layered on top.
And this wasn't some big secret either. The guy who basically founded the documentary movement, John Grierson, he had a great phrase for it. He called it the creative treatment of actuality. He knew that making a documentary isn't just pointing a camera at something. It's about selecting and editing and shaping reality to tell a specific story. So yeah, every documentary, every news report you've ever seen, it's a construction.
So we've seen how early print and early film were never as purely objective as we might think. So now let's bring it all together and really zoom in on this ideal of objectivity itself.
You gotta love Hunter S. Thompson. The legendary journalist, he did not mince words. He called objective journalism, wait for it, a pompous contradiction in terms. And why? His reasoning was simple. Journalism is made by human beings, and human beings can never, ever be truly objective. It's impossible.
Okay, so if perfect objectivity is literally impossible, then why did it become the professional standard we all hear about?
Well, a sociologist named Gay Tuchman had a fascinating answer. She called it a strategic ritual. Basically, the habits of objectivity, like quoting someone from both sides, they became a kind of professional shield. It was less about guaranteeing pure, unvarnished truth for you and me, and more about giving journalists a way to defend their work against criticism and accusations of bias.
And just think about it for a second. Before a single word even gets written, a whole bunch of subjective choices have already been made. Out of the millions of things that happen every day, what gets picked as a story worth covering? That's a choice. Who do they decide to interview? Whose voice gets presented as the expert? That's a choice. And how is the whole thing framed? Is this a protest or a riot? Is this person a hero or a vigilante? Every single one of those steps is a human judgment call, and it's loaded with an unavoidable point of view.
So where does all this leave us? Well, it leads to a pretty powerful realization. There isn't some clean, bright line separating real news from fake news. They both actually grow from the exact same root, the human need to tell a story. It's better to think of it like a spectrum. On one end, you've got pure, factual reporting. On the other, you've got complete fiction. And honestly, most of what we consume every day falls somewhere in that messy middle.
Okay, so if everything is subjective, is the takeaway just to throw our hands up and give up? No way! Absolutely not! This is actually where you get empowered. It's time to stop searching for that one perfect mythical source and start becoming what we'll call a savvy spectator.
So what's a savvy spectator? It's not someone who just passively sits there waiting to be told what's true. No, they're an active participant. A savvy spectator goes in knowing that every single piece of media is a construction, and their job is to deconstruct it, to take it apart, see how it was built, and most importantly, figure out why it was built that way.
So here it is. This is your new toolkit. These are the questions you can start asking about everything you watch, read, or hear. Who actually created this, and what's their motive? What are they choosing to emphasize? And maybe even more important, what are they leaving out? Whose voices are we hearing and whose are being excluded? What specific techniques, like word choice, images, music, are they using to try and make me feel a certain way? And finally, how could this exact same story be told from a totally different perspective? Asking these questions, it changes everything. It really does. It turns you from a passive audience member into an active analyst.
And that brings us to the final and maybe most important takeaway. This whole quest for some kind of pure objective truth in the news, it might just be a distraction. The real and I think much more powerful question isn't just, is this true? The better question is, why is this story being told in this way right now? Answering that question, well, that's the real key to understanding the world we live in.